To our audience, please feel free to submit questions throughout. We'll get to as many of those as we can. To make some brief introductions, it's a pleasure to introduce Mr. David Joosten, Regional Director, Vodafone Americas, Steve Brown, SVP of Enterprise Sales at Inseego, and Robert Boyanovsky, VP Enterprise Mobility with AT&T. So to frame our conversation here, I'd like to just get each of your thoughts on the thesis that we've got laid out in the title of the session. So in regard to the telecom industry, effectively selling not just connectivity, but these well-articulated, well-defined business solutions into target verticals like healthcare, manufacturing, retail, and so forth, you have to understand those verticals' problems and their goals. So I just would like to start by getting you to each characterize your respective organizations' approaches to understanding these different business sectors and gaining expertise in terms of delivering the solutions that they need. David, maybe we could start with you.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you, Sean. Hi, everybody. Very nice to be here. I think 5G is a very exciting technology, and especially for business. So I'm very happy to be on this panel. From a Vodafone perspective, I think telcos have always doubted a little bit to what extent they needed to start doing things in-house, verticalize, or start developing their own solutions, specifically with 5G or even IoT. I think we've all had a bit of those struggles to what extent we had to buy companies, create our own things. And I think at the moment, from a Vodafone perspective, especially on 5G, when we started out building out our mobile networks or our 5G networks, we created a hub in Milan, so in the north of Italy. Whoops, I was mute for a second. On our networks, to define what are the areas or what are the verticals that we needed to focus on, and we let pretty much everybody develop in that test environment, and we did that quite early on. I think a little bit over 2 years ago we started that, and today we have roughly I would say 30 applications that we defined for ourselves. Well, these are things we want to go to market. These are maybe things we want to co-invest in. These are things we want to launch ourselves, but on the other side, these are the things we want to partner on. So we realize that we cannot invest in everything, or we cannot launch everything ourselves. We just do not have the investment power of doing that. So some verticals we are very, very keen on investing in ourselves. Healthcare is one of those. But also logistics, manufacturing is one of those verticals that we do invest ourselves. Either we create a product under the Vodafone portfolio, or we will use one of our sub entities or one of the companies we've invested through in the past to go to market on that. So one of which is Digital Barriers, which is a company that does security or 5G security solutions. And we actually took a participation in that organization a little bit over 3 years ago, and we use them for all our real-time security applications, and they are quite advanced in the 5G space. So that's a bit our strategy from a Vodafone perspective. So we realize that you need to partner with other companies, and I think it is only for the better, and in certain areas we will invest ourselves.
Excellent. And Robert, what's the AT&T perspective? You all have done some interesting work. I'm thinking of in manufacturing with Samsung Semiconductor Fabrication Facility, and I know you've done some interesting work with healthcare systems. But just high level, how do you think about gaining that vertical expertise and then matching it to your technological capabilities?
Well, Sean, it's a good question. You know, in the AT&T business here, we've been on a vertical journey for a while, starting with our sales organization and then backing into our marketing organization, and then the product space, either mobility and IoT. We build solutions that, you know, meet what their challenges are. And, you know, as you start talking to customers, it's about what they're trying to achieve. It's either an experience they're trying to drive, an operational improvement that they can't unpack today with the current technology that new technologies can deliver for them. And it's about a business case, right? We, in the telco world here, we get excited about use cases. our customers, they get excited when they have a business case and a case study to prove in the technology to a business outcome. So Samsung Austin Semiconductor was one proving ground for us, great partner for us in the United States. We've also had some deployments in Rush Hospital in Chicago in the medical space. Those two verticals are super important. You think about where we are today as a society and what's happening with COVID around the globe. Manufacturing and healthcare, which would include, manufacturing vaccines as an example, are really important verticals to get right for society as a whole. So it's been a good journey for us, and it's really gives us the credibility in these conversations to have with these enterprises. They want to know that you have a depth of understanding for their business, right? And I think that's really helped us, gain momentum and market share.
Excellent. And Steve, this is something you and I have discussed a number of times in recent weeks. And in talking with you, you said something that stuck to me. You told me that your best clients take you where you want to be through joint discovery and a shared definition of success. So maybe you can share with our audience any learnings around that sales process. Give us some tips on how you shift from a sort of transactional approach to a consultative approach where you really match up your tech with your client's definition of success.
Oh, yeah, thanks. And David and Robert, it's good to see you guys again. And glad you guys are joining us out here today. I love having these types of interactions with customers and partners and others. So as you said, I first thing is it's going to sound simple, but there's some empathy and listening that goes along, especially today with customers, because not only are they battling with just the normal ups and downs of running a business and trying to be successful, you got a global pandemic on top of that. So decision making gets very, very compressed, and you have to really spend the time with your customers to understand their outcomes. What are you trying to get to first? Before we even talk about technology, we want to understand, like, what are your, it's a conversation around their top 5, top 10 business priorities. Where are you taking your business? And you know what, when we're having that conversation, we might find that our technology isn't in those top 10. It might be in the top 15. Okay, that's okay. Well, I want to add value to the client by maybe backing off in that sense, or talking about an adjacent technology that can help them. But the key is to really make sure you're maximizing the customer's time and your time by spending time on the right things. That kind of sounds fundamental, maybe a little bit almost like motherhood and apple pie, but I tell you, having run sales organizations for a better part of my career, everybody gets in a hurry. Let's rush out, do a demo. Let's do this, let's do that. And it's like, well, wait a second, like, what problem are we solving, or what's the outcome going to be? Do we understand what value, economic value, in terms that are viewed through the lens of the customer's value, are we delivering? And once you ground yourself in that type of a mindset, things start to get focused where they need to be, because it's helping not only the customer understand you and your technologies and what you can do, but really how you're going to map to different success factors. There's all sorts of tools and books and processes around selling, as a trade, or as a skill set, and they're all valuable. But you'll notice that's woven in, every single one of them is about the early stages of a process. Getting engaged with a client is really understanding. And learned a long time ago, I was 22, 23 years old, and my sales manager knocked me over the head with an eraser. Not hard. He just kind of tapped me and he says, "Hey, remember this: prescription before diagnosis is malpractice." So in other words, understand what you're doing first, and then decide. So it's wrapped up in that sentence. It's a joint discovery and then a shared definition of success. And we have 5G coming in at a high rate of speed. It's rolling out around the world twice as fast as 4G did. And then there's different types, not different types, but millimeter wave and sub-6. So customers are trying to wrap their head around, well, what does that mean? And which one does what do I need? What does 5G mean? So you really got to spend time up front educating your customer and educating yourself about your customer.
Great. Thank you very much, Steve. And David, just to further explore this idea of partnership and co-creation of solutions, I know Vodafone's partnered with AWS to put together 5G and mobile edge computing into a offering that I think set to roll out this spring in the UK and Germany. So as you've piloted that system and explored some of the use cases that benefit from localized compute and those very low latency 5G connections, what kind of learnings have you gained that'll help you inform how you position this in front of enterprise customers?
Well, it opens up a world of new applications and ways of doing work. I think we've launched it now with 2 customers, one of which is a company called Dedrone, which is a company that implements security software and solutions to make sure that certain sites are not being penetrated by drones, and only having that and having that real-time availability, and that the fact that their servers are close to our network infrastructure allows them to deploy these services on areas where you typically would not have any access at all. So it really opens up new applications. It opens up new ideas for a lot of businesses to work more effectively. And I think especially in the world of the pandemic that we are in at the moment, I think innovation is really key, and we need to find ways of working differently. And I think putting applications that close to the network already, where the work is actually being done, is opening a lot of new ideas. And we're actually actively stimulating that. So we are letting customers, together with Amazon or AWS, coming in to trial these ideas on our networks. And I would say every couple of weeks we find out new ideas that we can do together with customers that are applications for the future. So it's a very exciting partnership with AWS.
And Robert, any discussion around enterprise digital transformation? IoT's got to be a big part of that. I know AT&T ended the year with something north of 80 million IoT connections. And I just wanted to get a little better understanding of the market vis-a-vis, the need to partner with platform providers like AWS or Microsoft Azure, versus AT&T's desire to sell the connectivity and the platform. So I'm trying to understand, how do you grow your market share across the board while also embracing the partnership that might be necessary to penetrate some of these verticals that you're going after?
Yeah, it's a good question, and David hit the nail on the head. I like Steve's analogy there too with the malpractice. Sometimes we get excited as technologists to showcase the tech, right? And we talk about the use case, but we kind of forget about the buyer and why they've got to make the investment, and they've got to sell this tech investment internally as well, with the same rate of return, capital measurements that we all have when we make these investment decisions. So that was refreshing to hear, Steve. Appreciate that. When we started deploying our edge compute platform 2 years ago, we had this mentality of we're gonna pick the solution and we're gonna sell it to our customers. And at the time, we had launched with HP Enterprise for their hardware. And as soon as we got excited certifying that gear, right, with the local edge compute software running on it, the first sale we had was a Dell shop. And so, we're like very quickly going, wait a minute, that's not what we wanted to do. And I reminded, my team and the labs organization that supports us, is that customer on the other side is the buyer. So you have to be flexible in your ecosystem. That was on the hardware side, but it's so true on the CSP and software side. Yep. You can't pick one and win. because every enterprise has their own support. They have their own bias. They have their own infrastructure with fill in the blank CSP. Okay, so I think we learned a pretty quick lesson early on in our MEC deployment that we need to be open, right, and flexible. And the key to the enterprise, it is around these edge solutions. Yes, there's ultra low latency. We've definitely have seen that sub 10 millisecond latencies. But the excitement, and Dave's probably seen this too in his deployments here with Vodafone, is the privacy and security that these enterprise customers get from the solutions is what really excites them. Samsung Austin Semiconductor has a very strict policy and security stance, as you can imagine. Nothing can go outside the four walls, right? It's like a proverbial Fort Knox, highly competitive industry, as you guys can imagine. So, these customers look at different pieces of your value prop differently. And for the partnering and CSPs, you really have to be open. And that's kind of how we have positioned this today with the CSPs is depending on what the infrastructure or the demands of the enterprise are, we will bring in a Microsoft or AWS to solve the need, right? So the other thing you can't lose sight of is you need an umbrella connectivity layer, right? So the IoT sensors that are inside the four walls or coming in and out of the four walls from outside to inside need cellular connectivity. Like that's step one. So it's been interesting for us. There's been a lot of pull through of basic indoor cellular systems with this advent of edge compute and localizing the edge and giving the customers what they want, which helps drive, monetization of the environment. So it's been a good learning for us, but definitely this is a partnership ecosystem, and we do better when we have folks like on the call here, Steve and David across the globe, pushing the entire ecosystem forward, because it's going to be the CSPs, certainly it's going to be the telco providers out there, and the application ecosystem has got to come along for the ride. And together, that's how there's value unlocked in the enterprise.
Excellent. Steve, to this application point, I wanted you to maybe describe for our audience one that I think really showcases just how impactful 5G can be and why this combination of 5G and MEC really are necessary to open up these new types of categories. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Quake Technologies.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And yeah, I just want to second Robert's comments. It really is an ecosystem more today than ever. And it's, people have to be willing to be flexible, meet the market, meet in the channel, to add value to this. And this Quake Technologies was an example of that. They've developed for first responders a set of glasses, if you will, or that have thermal imaging cameras built into them that captures the image in front of them and then uses AI and cloud processing at the edge to render an image that's augmented reality back to the first responder to literally allow them to see through smoke. It is just fascinating, and it opens up all sorts of possibilities. But just thinking about it in that one context, think about being a first responder, a fireman, running into a burning building with smoke everywhere. Well, being able to differentiate temperatures, to be able to locate someone who might be lying on a floor, a person, a pet, or that you might not see without this technology, and seconds count. Not only for that person that you're trying to save, but for the first responder themselves, right? Allows them to navigate more safely through the environment. So it's capabilities like that, where things like as Robert was saying, that connectivity, that layer of being able to push all the way out to the edge with ultra low latency and ultra wide bandwidth, right? We don't have that proverbial last mile choke point anymore. So you can connect all the way out, bring it right to the edge, do all the processing you need through mobile edge computing, and render, basically mind-blowing technology.
Gentlemen, we've got about 4 more minutes here, and I've got lots more questions, but unfortunately, we're not going to have time for everything. So maybe we can move here into sort of some summary thoughts for our audience, which is primarily service providers. You know, when you think about co-creation and bringing solutions to market that require 5G, but are really more than just that connectivity piece, you know, what would you say are the 1 or 2 most important things to keep in mind as you develop your product offerings and as you invest in your technology? David, could you start us off?
Oh, I would emphasize it is really a broad ecosystem of a lot of players. So I think you'd really need to do well your due diligence on who you're going to partner with and how you are going to integrate all those solutions together. And I think one of the topics was also what is the value of the network provider in this? I think do find a good network provider who is quite advanced on 5G. Because it's a specific technology, and I think we do have a value to bring in that. So do some serious studying on who you're going to partner with and how all those things are going to fit together. Because you're going to have to buy something, probably either some components already built together, or you're going to have to stitch a lot of things up, and those things are going to have to work together. And I think that's critically important for developers to look at.
Robert, what are your thoughts? I know that's a broad question in a competitive landscape, but just if we're going to globally realize this vision of 5G, what can everybody do on the carrier and the vendor side to make sure we really do deliver on that vision?
Yeah, Sean, pretty meaty question for a lightning round. But you know, where's the $13 trillion coming in 5G and the big ecosystem wave? We all want to see the unforeseen, right? 4G, the advent of the iPhone, who knew it was coming, right? So what is the killer app? I don't think we have that in our hands right now. Okay, so I would say that in order to spur this along, you've got to have flexibility. You got to have ecosystem partners like has been discussed with David and Steve. You got to have a strategy around where you're going to put your investment, whether that's mobile 5G, edge, and fixed. And then when I talk to customers, especially in the IoT space, having a carrier you can talk to that's got professional services to help you figure out your roadmap or your digital transformation is going to be really important, right? You need to be able to trust someone to come in and articulate from experience how other customers in their industry have made the transformation. So those would be my pieces.
Steve, maybe you can bring us home here and give us some of your summary thoughts on how the telecom sector works with all of these verticals to really make sure 5G lives up to the hype.
Yeah, I think both David and Robert summed it up pretty well. It really is about getting to the value prop quickly with the client. What are we going to solve? Understanding what they're trying to get to, because everybody has a lot of questions around 5G. Customers, probably most customers, I would say, get that they're going to get a faster phone and they're going to be able to download quicker. But 5G is so much more than that. It's about bringing revolutionary capability and connectivity to open up this. So I think it's partnering with, being willing to partner and listen to your client. It's partnering with, it's allowing us to partner with best of breed folks out there. But at the end of the day, there's customers are going to lean on their telco providers because it's such a large part of their business and they're trusted. And when we work together better, because we develop software and hardware that deliver these services or help these, providers deliver their services. We work tightly with them to do, testing around, not to get too technical, but band aggregation and security and make sure all this stuff is tight and private and performs the best it can. All of these guys have deep certification processes. So when we do connect to their network, we're a good corporate network citizen. We're not doing things unnatural. So I think it's take your time, meet with your vendors, and really get to the what's the what. And it's almost become almost a same side selling type of a scenario where the walls have got to come down on both sides of it, right? Like salespeople don't need to come in trying to win the sale, and the purchasing guy beat the crap out of you on pricing, which that inevitably happens, But if we can figure out early on and we can demonstrate value earlier in the process and show that value, I think that's going to be the key to unlocking this technology.
Fantastic, gentlemen. I really appreciate you taking the time to have this discussion with me. And in terms of solving these big complex problems, our audience in the next keynote, we're going to talk about autonomous freight and global carbon emissions. So please stick around for that. And to the panelists, thank you again for your time.
You bet, Sean. David, Robert.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.